Charlie Sykes, welcome to Mea Culpa. Thank you so much for being here with us today. There is so much to talk about. The hour goes by, unfortunately, way too quick. So I'm just going to jump right into it. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All righty.
Shoot.
So, look, Charlie. You're right. Yeah, I'm the boss on this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Charlie, in his UN General Assembly address, our president pivoted heavily toward America First rhetoric, telling nations to defend their traditions, defend their culture, defend their borders, and explicitly nationalist framing that critics say diminishes multilateral institutions. How do you read the political calculus behind that rhetoric in this moment, this specific moment? Is he playing to the MAGA base? Is he trying to, say, reposition globally? Or is he signaling to Republicans that isolationism is back in favor?
Okay, well, there's a lot going on there, and you know how his mind works as well as anyone. This was a speech that was obviously drafted and crafted by Stephen Miller, who's got a very, very specific hyper nationalist point of view. Donald Trump is not a man of deep principles. He is not a strategic thinker. This is what is playing with the MAGA base right now. It's also playing with the right-wing nationalists of Europe, and they've made common cause with all of them. So none of that is particularly surprising. He had, nothing but contempt for the United Nations, nothing but contempt for multilateralism. And by the way, he gives the speech, during a period in which he has been actively dismantling much of the multilateralism that's undergirded American foreign policy for the last 70 years. So where Donald Trump goes day by day when it comes to geopolitics is as good a guess as any. I mean, anybody can make that guess. You and I talked about this on a live stream yesterday after he had done what appeared to be a complete pivot on Ukraine. And my reaction then is the same as my reaction today, which is, wait 24 hours, wait 48 hours. But there's no question about it that isolationism is the new orthodoxy in the Republican Party. And I think that will probably survive Donald Trump. What do you think?
I don't know. It's really why I was asking you the question.
Yeah.
I truly don't know. Obviously, it sounds a lot like isolationism. It sounds like America first and everybody else last, which, of course, never benefits relationships because instead of fostering partnerships, you basically separate yourself away from them. And then the bigger problem is, where are these folks now going? Where are our allies now going? They're walking right into the hands of our adversary, specifically China.
Well, this has been the big trend over the last 8 months. Has been the breakup with many of our long-term allies. And to your point about where are they going, one of the great geopolitical blunders of Trump 2.0 is alienating India because apparently because the prime minister there didn't want to nominate Donald Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. So we've antagonized them, slapped them with these draconian tariffs. And so what happens? We see India showing up in China at President Xi's big summit. You see this picture of the new globalist alliance minus Donald Trump, where you have Xi and Putin and Kim Jong-un
and then Modi. India. And Modi. Yeah.
And every American president since World War II has made it a priority to maintain good relationships with India, if for no other reason as a geopolitical counterpoint to China. And what have we done? And this is at a point where we have alienated so many of our other allies, whether you're talking about South Korea, whether you're talking about the Europeans. The NATO countries are, of course, still sucking up to Donald Trump because they're trying to keep him from doing something outrageous. But we're in a moment now of post-American leadership in the world, where many of these allies number one, are now wondering whether they can ever trust America again.
Yeah.
They're not exactly sure whether the United States under Donald Trump is on the same side anymore. And quite frankly, you probably heard what David Frum said. I think I got this right. The first time Donald Trump was elected, the world could look at that and say, okay, America was mixing tequila with Quaaludes. And, everybody can have a bad day, and it was a one-off. But when you do it again, you mix the Quaaludes with the tequila, the second time people think maybe there's a pattern here, maybe you have a problem. And I think that's going to have long-term global ramifications. That it's not
good thing they didn't bring in the
one-off.
fentanyl, because I put a stop to it at the southern border. Otherwise, it wouldn't be Quaaludes, it would be fentanyl.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
And I blew them up. You saw that. You saw the video. I blew them all up.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this,
bragging
then,
about
Charlie,
that.
because, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the reaction to Trump's speech was sharply partisan. Democrats called it an embarrassment on the world stage. Fox News, OAN, Newsmax, Republicans, they praised his assertiveness, claiming, like Sean Hannity did, that it was the best, most powerful, insightful, and thoughtful presidential speech at a United Nations General Assembly ever. Okay.
Really?
Yes. Does this split speak to the deep fractures in how each party conceives America's role? And is Trump pushing Republicans toward a more unilateral foreign posture by design? Is that what this was all about?
Well, I mean, let's the answer that. I mean, yes, obviously he wants to have more unilateral, but again, Donald Trump is Donald Trump, and everything flows from his ego and his needs and his desire to use his position to enrich himself. I think much of the rest of the world has figured out, how do you get on his good side? You come in, you give him an airplane, you bribe him, you buy crypto from him. So let's leave that aside. The reaction to this speech is I think more an example of this cult that we have right now. Because, Michael, turds don't polish themselves. That was an embarrassing speech. It was rambling. It was meandering. It was incoherent. It was insulting. It was everybody sitting in that room is looking at Donald Trump on the podium and asking themselves, do Americans know how embarrassing this guy is? That he is so completely unhinged and undisciplined. So the fact that Fox News is praising him is part of that pattern that whatever the dear leader says is going to be wonderful. And I think that's what you're saying. I mean, he could have gotten up there and he could have, I don't want to be too crude. I mean, he could have
fucking farted into the microphone and they would have turned around and said, that was the greatest
exactly.
fart that has ever been, dropped in an unga. In fact,
believe it or not, I was going to actually go with something even more gross, but that's sort of my point. It didn't matter what he said; they were going to say that, right?
Yeah, and it's even crazier because Jesse Waters, Laura Ingraham, Brett Baer, they're all parroting the same thing, including his enablers, his inner circle, where they turned around and they said the speech was so impactful and bold in the eyes of the foreign governments that were there. First, Caroline Leavitt said that the place was packed, right? And she was so proud to see how it was packed for Donald Trump. But more than that, that each and every person that was there claimed that it was the greatest, most bold speech, impactful speech that they ever heard, to the point that they're calling him now Daddy Trump.
Well, they've been calling him Daddy Trump for a while.
If you don't believe me, I want
you
to go ahead and Google. I'm talking to my listeners here. Because, we do about 500. We've just crossed over 500 million downloads. So we have quite a few listeners here. I want each and every one of you to go into Google right now, UNGA, United Nations General Assembly, Daddy Trump, and see how many people are making that same statement, which to me, again, I'm not sure which universe, which multiverse in the Marvel theory that I'm actually living in.
It is alternative. So look, this is the key. We are living in alternative universes, and this has been true for years now. That there was a time when maybe there have been information bubbles or echo chambers, and now they've become these alternative reality silos, haven't they? But I mean, this is almost, and I feel like we've been through this before. But the lack of embarrassment at parroting North Korean style dear leader rhetoric is really, really amazing. And I actually compared. I wrote about it in my newsletter on Wednesday, and I said you have to go back to Idi Amin's rant in front of the United Nations. Now, most of your listeners are probably not old enough to remember Uganda's Idi Amin, who was, one of the sickest puppies ever, who aligned himself with terrorists. But he was a crazy guy. He was embarrassing. There are moments of great statesmanship at the United Nations, and then there are the moments that history remembers as what the hell was that? And I think you're going to have Idi Amin, 1975, maybe Hugo Chavez at some point, and then what the hell was Donald Trump? Now, I see some of the commentators saying they're not laughing at Trump anymore. Last time they laughed at him, now they're not laughing at him. I think they're not laughing at him because they're sitting there like watching this train wreck and realizing how much damage he can do. My old slogan, which is a clown with a flamethrower still has a flamethrower. And Donald Trump may be addled, he may be demented, he may be undisciplined, but he still has a tremendous amount of power. He controls the most powerful military in the country. He has an iron grip on the biggest economy in the world, at least for now. And he's got nuclear weapons.
And he has an iron grip, Charlie, on the legislative branch and our judiciary. And people turn around and say to me, well, no, he really doesn't. Look, not all of them. They're pushing back now. The judiciary is holding solid. Fuck you. They are not. Let me be very clear. It's too many of them. And I mean the vast majority, which gives them the power, have all abdicated their positions. They have basically said, you know what? To keep Trump happy, whatever he wants me to sign, I'm just going to rubber stamp it. Because that's all that they're doing. When you have Lindsey Graham turning around and saying twice on Fox News with Sean Hannity, twice, or was it Brett Baer? Twice in a period of a 12-minute segment, he hopes Trump runs for a third term. You really know that the guy's got an iron grip on this.
Well, yes, I agree up until a point, and you're probably right about this. I mean, Lindsey Graham is also one of those puzzles for me, and probably not a puzzle, really it should be a puzzle. But I mean, we've seen one politician after another grovel and surrender. Lindsey Graham's capacity for self-humiliation continues to amaze me. The fact that he's willing to abase himself, that he has become Trump's fluffer like this. But to your point, I think that people need to start taking that kind of rhetoric seriously. I'm going to come back to the judges in a moment. I actually do think that we've suffered from a failure of imagination, where if we would have said a year ago, many of the things that are happening right now, if we would have predicted them, we would have been accused of Trump derangement syndrome. And so I think people need to watch the patterns of this administration, the fact that they are doing things that make it very dangerous for them to voluntarily surrender power. I mean, when you are this corrupt, when you are doing these things, the prospect of peacefully giving that power to your opponents, that becomes much riskier. Every authoritarian who's riding the tiger is afraid to get up because they don't want to be eaten. As for the judiciary, there's several stories here, and you follow this. I think in general, the district courts and the appellate courts have done a reasonably good job. They're not totally in the tank. The question is the 6 conservatives on the U.S. Supreme Court, and this is going to be crucial. We are in this moment we're in right now, largely because of those 6 justices. Yeah. And John Roberts, who gave Trump immunity, but also has been peeling away guardrails and restraints upon his executive power. If, for example, They rule that he has the ability to basically eviscerate and take absolute control of all of the quote unquote independent agencies out there, like the FTC, all of them. That is going to be a dramatic increase in government power. And one of the reasons why there's so many people and institutions that have been fearful of Trump is because they know they can't look to the legislature for relief. They're not sure about the judiciary. And it used to be that you could count on independent regulatory agencies to perhaps provide a little bit of balance. That could all be obliterated by the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah. So look, some foreign diplomats were privately saying that Trump's address undercut U.S. credibility. What does it mean for American soft power when our leader uses the UN as a platform for domestic culture war? Because that's exactly what he did. And more importantly, how sustainable is that approach?
Well, it's not sustainable if you want to be the leader of the free world. I mean, obviously, it undermines the credibility, but you used an interesting phrase there, an important phrase, soft power. We have the hard power, and Donald Trump focuses on that an awful lot. But soft power is crucial I think, in our competition with places like China. And not just rhetorically, but when you think about the implications of all the foreign aid cuts, the USAID cuts around the world, that was buying goodwill. That was creating alliances. That was creating trust. And people should not be shocked if the Chinese now step in where the Americans have abandoned their role. So rather than exercising soft power, we've completely gutted it. We've given up on it and given openings to our rivals. And as far as standing up there in front of the United Nations and talking about his poll numbers and going off on rants, the interesting thing about the Fox News fluffers, they're not making a distinction between what goes over well at a MAGA rally and what goes over in front of the whole world of 190 nations thinking, who is this guy? What the fuck is happening to America?
Yeah. And especially at a moment when global crisis, climate, migration, wars demand robust diplomacy. What's the political upside, if you think about it, for Trump in doubling down on nationalization? I mean, on nationalism. What's the benefit here? Because that's what he's doing. He's doubling down on America First ideology. I mean, is he betting that voters will value posturing over policy coherence?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it worked for him. He won the election, and he thinks that this is a winning issue. Now, by the way, the American First ideology has apparently some big loopholes in it. As you undoubtedly saw, the Treasury Secretary is now floating the idea that U.S. taxpayers may bail out Argentina, which is going through some fiscal problems. Now, it's one thing to pick a fight with our friends in Brazil or, India or South Korea, but where in the America First ideology does bailing out a country with a fiscal track record as shaky as Argentina, where does that fit in? This is where the point is, and you know this awfully well. If you really try to find the coherent line through a lot of what Trump does, other than his own personal self-interest, you're going to be frustrated because he doesn't really value coherence. He's making it up as he goes. He picks friends and foes based on what they're willing to say with him, say to him, whether they're willing to flatter him or whether they're on his right side or his wrong side. He's surrounded himself with some pretty hardcore ideologues who do have a worldview. But as you know, Donald Trump does not really, other than what benefits Donald Trump is good, what hurts Donald Trump is bad. The national interest is sort of over there.
Yeah, secondary, right? For sure. So if Republicans rally behind Trump's UN speech, does that effectively marginalize dissent within the party's foreign policy establishment? There's no way in the world that all of Republicans are ascribing to the sentiment of Fox News, right? I mean, they just can't. You watched it with your own eyes. You listened to it with your own ears. You saw the expressions of individuals that were there in the room, sort of trying to figure out when he was talking about rebuilding the UN for a $500 million deal. Yeah, I mean,
Judicial develop.
that's great for a rally because Trump has done things like that his whole life. Look at Woolman Rink, right? He fixed it. He had the bet with Ed Koch, and he won.
Mhm.
He took over
Mhm.
the hotel on Fifth Avenue and so on, and he made it into a success. Great, great, great. And that's why people voted for him the first time around. But we're not talking about that at this moment in time. We're talking about 193 nations that, again, they're dealing with things like climate change and war and famine and migration and all the economy and tariffs. They're dealing with all that. And he's talking about plastic walls instead of mahogany wood, right? He's
Not a
talking
one-off,
about
though.
marble versus, I mean, this was just nuts. Could this be the moment that the GOP cements itself as a more isolationist, culture-first party? Or do you think they
But
fight it?
oh no, they don't. But they don't fight it. Look, no one who watched Donald Trump really should have been surprised. I mean, think about it. If you're a Republican senator or congressman and you've bought, you bought into so much. You looked the other way on January 6th. You don't care about the sexual abuse. You don't care about the jet from Qatar. You don't care about the way that he's weaponizing the Department of Justice. You just saw him give this batshit crazy press conference about Tylenol and pregnant women. So you're going to break with them on the United Nations? No, I mean, you figure, this is Trump being Trump. So they just basically shrug their shoulders. Now, you asked at the beginning whether or not this marginalizes dissent. Yes, obviously, there is no opposition to Donald Trump in the Republican Party any longer. But on this issue of foreign policy, and this goes back to Lindsey Graham, there is, as long as it doesn't involve Trump personally, and I'd be interested in your insight on this, he does allow a little give and take. For example, you do have some strong voices in favor of supporting Ukraine within the Republican Party. Lindsey Graham is one of those. He has legislation in the Senate. And so maybe in Graham's mind, if he was sitting here, maybe if the camera was off, he'd say, look, here's the deal. As long as I suck up to Donald Trump, maybe I can prevent him from abandoning Ukraine. He'll listen to me. I need to be in the room. I need to be in Donald Trump's ear. I need to be the last person that he talks to. So there is room for the internationalist faction of the party, and they're obviously going to try to seize on all of this. But clearly, they are not the dominant part of this party, and a lot of the energy or the id of the party, especially on social media, is increasingly isolationist.
If you value choice in your money, your goals, and your future, you know exactly how frustrating traditional healthcare can be. One size fits all treatments, preset dosages, zero flexibility. I mean, it's like trying to do your taxes with monopoly money. It's ridiculous. But now there's another way with Hims and Hers. I mean, these guys actually get it. Weight loss, hair loss, sexual health, mental health. They've got personalized care for all of it because your biology, your lifestyle, and your goals, totally unique. You're not average, and your healthcare shouldn't be either. There's no membership fees, no surprise charges, no sitting in a waiting room staring at outdated magazines while pretending to be interested in a fish on the wall. Just transparent pricing, real care, and the convenience of taking care of yourself online while wearing sweatpants, drinking coffee, or hell, plotting your next career move. So do this for yourself. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/Cohen. That's HIMS.com/Cohen to find your personalized treatment options. Yeah, some products need a provider consultation and it's not available everywhere. But compared to old school healthcare, this feels like upgrading from a flip phone to a smartphone. Fast, easy, and maybe maybe even a little fun.
If the Tucker Carlsons of the world are moving the Overton window of Republican support, it is toward this sort of isolationism, if not switching sides in the Cold War. So this is going to be a fight post-Trump.
Oh, yeah.
There's no question about it. There's going to be a fight, and it's going to be a big one, I think.
Oh, I totally agree with you. But you're right, because there are strong opinions on various different topics.
Yes, right.
On various different issues of chaos that are right now fracturing our country. So, for example, you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I can't believe I actually agree with her on something, is adamant, along with Josh Hawley, that the Jeffrey Epstein files must be immediately released. And fortunately, Democrats had a major win in Arizona. So now the table has flipped. There's 218 votes. They have now gotten to the number of votes, assuming everybody holds the line, to force MAGA Mike Johnson to put that bill on the floor, demanding the release completely unredacted, except for the names of the victims, to Congress and to the public. That's just one. Then we can talk about a million different things. But even First Amendment, we saw Ted Cruz come out and tried to do his impersonation of a Brooklyn gangster. Terrible, by the way, Ted.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Jimmy Kimmel for a second.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because it's still obviously a big topic.
Yeah.
Kimmel returned to ABC, to his show, after a 6-day suspension. And that reignited debate over cancel culture versus free speech. From your vantage, was Kimmel's suspension an overreach motivated by politics, or do you think it was a defensible internal decision by ABC Disney?
I think it was a panic move by ABC Disney. I think that they heard what the FCC chair Brendan Carr said, and they said, oh my God, we have billions of dollars at stake here. We got to pull him, and then they began to see what the fallout was. Now I'm going to give them a little bit of credit later down the road, but I don't think they anticipated the kind of blowback they got from customers, from the entertainment industry, from people who, prominent voices. One of the things we've been lacking, Michael, in Trump 2.0 has been collective action, has been civil society pushing back and saying, hell no. That happened in this case. It did happen, and it clearly got Disney's attention. Now, I was on a cable show after Kimmel's monologue late the other night, and somebody was saying, well, actually, given that kind of pressure, Disney had no choice. And I disagreed. Disney always has a choice. All of these companies have a choice. All of these entities, all the universities, all the law firms have a choice. They have agency. And so the good news is that on more mature reflection, and certainly under pressure, Disney decided that they weren't going to completely bend the knee. Now, it's not over, because you still have Sinclair and Nexstar that are refusing to air Jimmy Kimmel. But for your listeners, if that felt like a win, it's because it was a win and maybe an indication of where we could go. But again, long road ahead of us.
Yeah. And as somebody who had their First Amendment constitutional right stripped from them, I was the first political prisoner ever held by my own country. I want my listeners to hear this, because you've heard me say it before, but for those that haven't, I was the first political prisoner ever held by this country because I refused to waive my First Amendment constitutional right. And imagine that, right? Thrown back in, went to solitary confinement, brought me up to a total of 51 days, abused, right? In a room, broken window, flies. It was 105 degrees in there, no ventilation. The toilet didn't work. The floor was filthy. The sink just barely dripped water. No pillow. No change of clothes. Imagine, right? You're only out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 15 minutes to take a fast shower. You don't even get phone privileges. This is a real problem. And this happened going back 5 years, 2020, when I filed that habeas corpus petition, which thank God for Alvin K. Hellestein, federal, Southern District of New York, federal judge Alvin K. Hellestein, who turned around and stated emphatically that the actions of Bill Barr and the administration were retaliatory and for the purpose of harming my First Amendment constitutional right because I wanted to publish a book that was critical of President Trump. I warned everybody 5 years ago that I was just a litmus test. And I was fighting like a dog, going on every television station, speaking to every podcaster, doing documentaries, speaking to journalists, anybody that would listen. And it was a lot. I kept telling them my biggest fear and why I am doing what I am doing is because I don't want to see what happened to me ever happen to anyone ever again. Now, with all due respect to Jimmy Kimmel, and it was a violation, as far as I'm concerned, of his First Amendment right. Look, Jimmy Kimmel's been brutal to politicians, to presidents for the last 20 years, right? I mean, if you have thin skin, sure, it bothers the hell out of you. I, on the other hand, people always ask me, well, Ben Stiller, who happens to be a friend of mine, right, turned around. I've known Ben for like 25, 27 years. So, he turned around and he was like, what'd you think of my impersonation of you? I was like, oh, I can't wait to see you. So he goes, well, what, are you angry at me? You angry at me? I was like, no. So he goes, no, seriously, what'd you think? I said, hey, it wasn't so good, right? I mean, it was a very weak attempt, but I appreciated, the thing. I mean, did I like it? To be honest, yeah, right? I made Saturday Night Live, but most people don't like it, right? And I could understand Trump not liking the everyday bashing. Well, then maybe do something that you're not going to get bashed on. Maybe turn around and tell the ICE agents to take the mask off and stop grabbing people in the street. Stop going into hospitals and taking women right after they had a child. Maybe stop going to after the guy has open heart surgery, taking him and locking him up in an internment camp as well. Maybe turn around and stop federalizing the police or knock this stupid tariff shit off that costs consumers money because tariffs are paid by consumers, right? Consumers pay tariffs, and tariffs are taxes. I mean, there's so many things that Trump can do if you don't want to get made fun of, right? But that's not what they do. And as far as I'm concerned here, it was the right thing for ABC Disney to do. I just don't think they did it for the right reason. They didn't do it to protect Jimmy Kimmel's First Amendment right. They did it because their bottom line was getting killed.
Yep. I think that's true, but you know what? Who knows? Maybe they did decide.
I do. The numbers came out.
Well, see,
Charlie, the numbers came
were
out
huge. Yeah,
10,000% increase in the number of individuals that canceled their subscription to ABC as well as to Hulu, ESPN, and so on. Basically, we, the American populace, the citizens, most probably Democrats, kicked ABC Disney right in the nuts with steel-tip boots.
So it works.
Said, it sure does. All right. And so I always say this, it is us who has the power, not them. But we have to be coordinated. We have to be unified.
Well, let's go back to your story, which I've heard before, but is horrifying to hear it from you. And, the whole point of a lot of what Trump does is to instill fear. And I think this is the key to understanding authoritarians is he doesn't have to lock everybody up. He has to get in your head and think, oh my God, if I say this, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to be thrown into a cell like Michael Cohen? Am I going to be fired like Jimmy Kimmel? Am I going to be sued like CBS
Michael
or
Cohen.
ABC?
He sued me for $500 million.
Right. So, I mean, and this is the point, and this is the fear, is that people internalize that, and they have the censor is not the jackbooted thug outside the door. The censor's in their head. And so every time that a company does the right thing for whatever reason, it perhaps provides a little bit of moral support to the people, again, as you point out, who now realize you do have the power. Other companies are going to look at it and say, okay, maybe it is not the smartest thing to do to cave in to Donald Trump, and it is that collective action. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to get your take on this. As you know, even before Kimmel's show aired, he put out this social media bleat where he's
Yep.
clearly threatening ABC. He's referencing the fact that the last time I went after them, they gave me $16 million. And by the way, just a reminder that paying him off does not buy you safety. I think he's going to follow through on his threats because he cannot allow what happened with Disney to inspire other people to say, hey, maybe the emperor has no clothes. Maybe in fact
that
he doesn't. Yeah,
you're right, Charlie. In that text post that he put out on Truth Social, what he did is he implied that reinstating Jimmy Kimmel, because they told him, the first line is like, oh, they told me that it was canceled, amounted to, in his opinion, this is all his. This is all his determination.
Yeah, this is his confession.
Reinstating Kimmel amounted to an illegal campaign contribution. Yeah. Campaign finance violation.
Bullshit.
And he knows all about it because that was one of the charges that was brought against me. And he knows my case very, very well.
Yeah.
If he follows through, and I'm with you, I guarantee you that they're going to. There's no doubt in my mind. Let me be very clear about Donald Trump. And I know Donald Trump better than than any human being should know another human being. If you punch Trump, or he perceives it that you punched him, he's going to come at you 10 times harder.
Right. He said that.
And right now, Trump, as president of the United States of America, controls all the levers of power. And that is not Michael Cohen's opinion. That's fact. He clearly controls the executive branch. He controls both the House and the Senate, so he has Congress under control. And he's also controlling the judiciary. And I get a lot of pushback. Oh, he's not really controlling the judiciary. Fuck you. Yes, he is. Right? Yeah, yes, he is. Okay, he may be losing in the lower courts. Mazel tov to you, right? But here's the bottom line. They take it to the appellate court. They take it to the Supreme Court. And all of a sudden, it's a win. You cannot lie to yourself that he's got a lot of wins, all right? And that better put some fear into people. So the question that I really want to ask you is, if he follows through, and again, I believe he will, what precedent could that set for press suppression in future administrations as well? Because why? If I was the next president of the United States as a Democrat, right, which I have been my whole life, if I end up, the first thing I would do is listen to what Fox, Newsmax, OAN are saying about me. I don't like what they're saying about me, off of the case of President Donald J. Trump versus ABC Disney Incorporated. I'm now going to sue all three of them. I'm going to pull, for example, whatever licenses that they may have. I don't know if they have, if they even have licenses. But Sinclair is a broadcaster. I'm going to hit them with the monopoly, violation. What do you call it? A Sherman Antitrust Act. I'm going to go after them with anything that I can. All of a sudden, we're going to open up some IRS, investigations into them, yada, 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 whatever the hell it is, And if you make a mistake, we're not going to turn around and allow you to correct it like what they did to me. You can't correct your mistake. No, fuck you. You're going to jail. Because for whatever the reason is, all anybody wants to do today is incarcerate people. I mean, whether it's going to be the migrants, throw them into these internment camps, these concentration camps. Oh, you got Tish James, Alvin Bragg, you got James Comey, you got Adam Schiff. By the way, and I believe all four of them are going to end up getting smashed. My prediction: all four of them end up indicted and in jail. But I want to go back to our ABC Disney. Yeah, trust me. Trust me. I know. Unfortunately, this game I have predicted at about 95% accuracy so far. Rest assured, Tish James doomed. Schiff doomed. Comey, I believe, doomed.
I think they're all going to be indicted. They're all going to be indicted, but I think that the fact that the Justice Department the U.S. Attorney has already said that there's no case. Look,
Yeah, but he's already not there anymore. He walked away. Wait till the next
I
one
understand that,
comes in.
but the federal judges actually, they read newspapers, they
Okay.
listen to podcasts, they know
Well,
this is going on.
$1.
I don't think, yeah, but
Charlie,
okay,
$1 bet.
sure, I'm in, but I don't think that Donald Trump actually cares whether they actually end up in jail. He would like it.
Oh, yes,
would like
he does.
them. Okay,
Oh,
what
yes,
he
he
wants
does.
them to do is he knows he can ruin their lives just by bringing the case, right?
And he's going to.
Oh, he's definitely going to. Now, you're raising a really interesting question that I've asked. Why do Republicans and conservatives and MAGA not have a sense that they are creating this vortex that could eat them? I mean, normally one of the reasons why people exercise restraint in the use of power is they know they will not always have power. The other guy is going to get in power, and that if you abuse it, you might create a precedent for them to come after you, right? Which is certainly extremely plausible right now. So why don't they care? This is one of the reasons why I'm not making a prediction. Don't think I'm paranoid about this, but my anxiety level about their unwillingness to give up power is rising, because why would you act like this if you think at some point you're going to have President AOC, or you're going to have President Gavin Newsom,
because
and Attorney General Adam Schiff?
He's not.
Well, that's
leaving.
my point. This is my concern. Now, here's another area where I want to push back a little bit. Your concern
only becomes a reality if, in fact, Republicans lose, if Donald Trump doesn't stay for a third term. And we already know that he intends to stay for a third term. You say to me, Michael, how is it that you know that to be true? He's selling merchandise out of the Oval Office that says Trump 2028. You got Lindsey fucking
really
Graham going on
yeah.
television, right? He's not doing it for nothing. He's putting something into your head already in advance, 3 years in advance.
So
you're like, oh my God. Yeah, but we knew he was going to do that. He had, right? Yeah. And they're going to be like, you know what? He's doing such a great job. He's doing such a great job that there's no reason in the world for us to want somebody else. All hail the king. And then you know what's going to happen? They're going to end up figuring out how to gerrymander more states. And the next thing you know, it's going to be a Republican forever and ever, until you ultimately maybe get that one Republican that decides that he wants to try to bring our democratic republic back. And then he ends up putting, but nobody ever gives up power. When was the last time you saw somebody in this world who had power other than George Washington give it up?
Well, in America, we had peaceful transitions of power all the time. In fact, it was only Donald Trump that refused to have a peaceful transition of power. I mean, that was one of the great things. What did I say
in 2018? 2 years before it happened. 2 years before January 6th. What did I say at the House Oversight Committee hearing in 2018, 2 years before? I turned around and I said, my biggest fear is that if Donald Trump loses the 2020 election, there will never be a peaceful transfer of power. The words that you're speaking right now, they're just parroting what I said 2 years before it occurred. Because again, I know the man better than any human being should know another.
See, I think I'm going to maybe slightly disagree with you on another point here too. So these lawsuits about press suppression, these cases, I don't think he wins those. I think I think that, again, I'm looking at some of these lawsuits. I'm looking at a threatened lawsuit that he has against the one against the New York Times. There's another one that I'm tangentially involved in. They are so bogus, and not yet, it hasn't been filed. They're so bogus, they're so weak that the only point is, like, can I use this to extort? Can I drain them? Can I intimidate other journalists who do not have those kinds of resources? My fear is that he loses at the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, the one thing they've been not terrible on has been the First Amendment, has been free speech. But think about the possibility of him losing that case and then defying them. That we're not there yet, right? Defying the court.
Well, let me just be very clear. I don't believe that you're right, and I don't believe that the court has been solid on the First Amendment. They refused to hear my case. My case went all the way up to the Supreme Court. They turned around and they said, nope, Bivens all but kills any action by the government to hold them accountable for violating your constitutional rights. And they said, we're not going to hear the case. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I had Lawrence Tribe also as a co-author onto those papers. It was phenomenal. I'll send them to you. They're incredible papers.
I would love to see. I would love to see that, because the
Supreme Court said no.
Yeah. See, I think one of the reasons why this Kimmel story has resonated so strongly, and why I think that his return was actually kind of an important moment, is because there is no more fundamental American right than the right to speak, to write, to criticize, to tell jokes. This is like I think it's one of the bedrock values of America. It really not necessarily makes us exceptional, but it's one of those things that certainly distinguishes, and I think it's deeply ingrained in people. I think we've gotten away from it. I think that we've got complacent about those free speech rights. So I'm less pessimistic about him winning. What I am very pessimistic about is his willingness to use the process itself as the punishment. And so, for example, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, ABC, in theory, Disney, they have the resources to handle bogus bullshit lawsuits. But there are a lot of media voices out there who, the moment the lawsuit, no matter how bogus, is filed, the meter starts running on the lawyers.
They're out of business.
The anxiety is created. And you watch them. You've seen some of these guys.
I've done it
on CNN. Where
Charlie,
they're going.
Yeah, I've done it when I worked for him. What? I can't tell you the number of stories that I killed off of. I had
threats,
an unlimited budget, legal budget, given to me by Trump in order to shut down stories that were negative to him, and I didn't have to spend a ton of money. I took the New York Times case where we lost, and it preceded me. You ever walk out of a doctor's office and you feel like you just got conned? Like they barely looked at you, but they told you that you're fine. Maybe threw in that, drink some more water, and that's it. No real info, no plan, just a shrug and a bill. Hey, don't forget your copay. I mean, I've been there more times than I care to admit. And you know what? I'm done with it. And that's why I signed up for Superpower. And let me tell you, this thing is the real freaking deal. They send a licensed professional to your house, or you hit a nearby lab and they run over 100 biomarkers, 100. And that's not a typo. Your heart, your liver, your thyroid, hormones, metabolism, vitamin levels, environmental toxins. I mean, it's like popping the hood of your body and seeing what's really going on. But here's the kicker. Superpower doesn't just hand you a bunch of confusing charts and send you packing. No, they give you an actionable plan, custom supplements, nutrition that actually works for your biology, some lifestyle changes, the whole thing. And yeah, they tell you your true biological age so that you can track how you're actually aging. Turns out mine's holding up, well, somewhat okay, even after all the crap that I've been through. I mean, you're not guessing anymore. You're not relying on a 10-minute appointment from someone who forgot your name before you left the room. This isn't about taking control. It's about knowing your blueprint and actually doing something with it. So here's what I want you to do. Go right now to superpower.com and use code Cohen. That's Cohen, Cohen, and you're going to get $50 off your annual membership. And stop reacting. Start optimizing. Your biology decoded, your blueprint activated with Superpower. But the story that has been reported is that the New York Times spent several millions of dollars.
Yes, absolutely.
And as I would say to this, Idaho newspaper, I already looked at your Q1s, your Q2s, your Q3s. You're sitting with $110,000 in the bank? You know what it's going to cost you for a motion to dismiss? Especially one that we're going to oppose? At least triple that. So you really want to run with this fake story simply so that you can grab eyeballs at the expense of somebody else? Let me be very clear. My client has authorized me to file immediately an action against you the second that article hits. So I'll tell you what, I'll give you 30 minutes. It's now, say, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If I don't hear from you by 4:30, I'm filing the papers. Just let me know what position you got. And 90% of the time,
90%.
90% of the time, they would say, we're not running it. We're not running it. A couple of times they say, hey, is it possible that we could, I don't know, can we change this? Is there any part of this story that we can run that is not, in your estimation, offensive? No, the whole goddamn thing is offensive. I'm sorry.
This is kind of creepy, Michael.
Yeah.
You kind of have a Goodfellas vibe here going.
Well, let me be very, very clear.
Brendan Carr seems like the poor man's Michael Cohen.
Well, sometimes it's very true. Well, sometimes, it was justified, where it was off of some rumor by allegedly 2 sources, and it was completely inaccurate, right? Just completely inaccurate. And so that's sometimes. And of course, there were probably others that there was a semblance of truth to it, though it could have been an extorted truth. Let me say this. They put me through hell on the First Amendment. I understand exactly what the hell they're doing better than probably anybody, better than any of these pundits that you're going to see on television, that's for sure. And again, my biggest fear is I'm watching as what they did to me. And I was fortunate because I had a great lawyer, Danya Perry. I had a great judge, Alvin Hellerstein, and I had the facts. We had the facts on our side. Well, it worked to my advantage. What happens if it doesn't? And by the way, what if you don't have the funds within which to pay a lawyer? Now what?
See, I was thinking as you were describing your phone calls with the Idaho newspaper, I think people...
Careful, Charlie.
Charlie. What?
All right.
What can I say? No. I'm thinking. No, I'm actually thinking how people need to, who are listening to this, think if you got that phone call, what would you do? Now, a lot of people are like, really brave, like I would defy, I would stand up, but really, you get that phone call. This is how much money you have. This is what it's going to cost you. This is what's going to happen. This is what made ABC's original decision to settle that lawsuit and CBS's decision so demoralizing, because if the big guys won't stand up to it, what chance do the little guys, including
Zero.
Independent journalists? Exactly. So
Zero.
that's why it was so... That was one of the really pivotal moments, even before Trump took office, that ABC said, we're going to bow the knee. ABC, which, let's face it, their legal bills would have been high, but they would have been a rounding error for the company, and yet they wouldn't do it.
Sure, yeah. Sure. Now, meanwhile, let me just touch on one quick, because the hour goes by, unfortunately, way too quickly. We're seeing so much as a result of everything we've talked about. There's so much pent-up anger and divisiveness and rage. And, these folks who are mentally fucked up, because there's no other way to describe them.
That's right.
They turn to a firearm. We saw the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We saw attempted assassinations twice on President Trump. And just today, or yesterday, a shooter opened fire at a Dallas ice field office, indiscriminately firing into it. Now, allegedly, according to Kash Patel, who, by the way, I don't understand this guy. This guy is making more mistakes. If I was still in the administration, if I was still in that inner circle, Trump would call me up. Michael, yeah? So you go, you got to get rid of this guy. He's no good. Just do it. And do it mean. Just do it really mean in front of people. And that's what he did. He never fired anybody. He would have me fire them. So that whole thing with the apprentice, you fired? Nah, he would come to me and say, get rid of him. And it was just like that. He's gone. Okay, got it, boss. Mean? Brutal. Okay, you got it.
What's
right?
the point
And
of the mean? Well, I mean, why not just fire the person? What's
no,
the mean about?
no, in order to set a message to others.
Okay.
It's all about keeping control over the others as well. So you got Kesh Patel, who's now posting photos on his fucking X or his Truth Social, wherever the hell he's posting this shit, of the bullet casing that shows anti-ICE. Right, so of course
Yes.
now they're going to turn around. And they're going to say it's all the Democrats. It's once again the unhinged lunatic Democrats that are opening fire, killed like two people, two detainees, and injured one. Yada yada, killing them. He then, of course, took his life. The assassin. As political violence continues to escalate across the U.S., my final question to you: how do we understand the motivation of rage-driven shooters? Are they symptoms of polarization, mental health crises, or something deeper in the social fabric of this country?
Well, I'm going to be careful answering that question because we don't know. We don't know about you described them as these people are fucked up, and they're fucked up in ways that, are not black and white, that don't fall into normal political, categories. The problem is that there's this instant rush of people saying, we want this to fit our ideological narrative, that we are the victims and you are the bad guys. The reality is often much more complicated and perhaps sometimes unknowable. So I don't want to speculate about what's going on inside these minds. What is clear is that the weaponization, the fundraising, the demagoguery will not wait for the evidence to come along. We saw that in the wake of Charlie Kirk. We're going to see that in the wake of this, whatever the facts are. And so this again now feeds the intensity. This gives the a pretext to crack down again on dissent, to weaponize the power of the federal government against enemies. I share your skepticism about Kesh Patel. There was a time when if the FBI laid something out at a press conference, you would think, okay, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't give them the benefit of the doubt anymore, so I don't know. And maybe it doesn't matter in terms of what the politics is going to be. But I will say this. I'm older than you. You probably don't remember 1968. And back in the late 1960s, you had that feeling that things were falling apart and political assassinations felt like they were becoming part of the ugly fabric of American politics. Robert F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., a few years after the assassination of JFK, the attempted assassination of George Washington. Yes, I mean, and again, given the proliferation of guns and anger and crazy people, and you don't need a lot of crazy people. I mean, just in the last few months, we had the guy that shot up the ABC affiliate the other day.
The ones who shot up the school, the church, the synagogue.
The CDC,
you had the ones that brought into the CDC. You had one that went into one of these big box stores. They're out of control. And I say that they're fucked up because I believe anybody who picks up a gun with the intent of shooting another person, you have to be fucked up. You can't have your head screwed on straight. It's like you remember that not too many years ago there was some idiot that was throwing concrete blocks off of the top of an overpass on a bridge. Well, what did you think was going to happen, right? I mean, is this some rush for you that, hey, I fucking got it? And meanwhile, went through the windshield and it killed the driver and so on. Then it became a manhunt. There's something wrong with anybody that wants to hurt another human being.
So in terms of this climate, you were talking about what you told Congress a few years ago. For the last several years on cable television, I have been saying that, we are headed into a period of real danger, and it appears to be escalating all the time. The rhetoric, the hatred, the demonization. And again, go back to the kinds of things that Stephen Miller says.
The dehumanization.
The dehumanization. What do you think is going to happen in a country like this? And again, it doesn't have to be a mass movement of violence. If it's 1/100th of 1% of the American public, that's a lot of people with guns doing crazy things.
Amen.
And the fact is that we are angrier, We are more bitter. There are more pretexts to think that the other guy is a terrorist or an enemy or hates God or hates America or is a Nazi or whatever. And once you begin to dehumanize and make your opponents into monsters, that creates an incentive or a I don't want to use the word permission structure because that's one of the most hackneyed cliches out there to say, okay, we're not going to debate this. We're not going to rely upon democratic processes. We're going to be warriors. And when you get guys like Kash Patel throwing around like, I will meet you in Valhalla. What the fuck is that? First of all, other than we are warriors and we are picking up the Crusader sword. Well, Crusaders did not come and have seminars on multiculturalism in Jerusalem. They saw themselves as warriors. And you look at a lot of the MAGA porn, which I'm sure you see, and there is this real sort of fetish, not just for cruelty and brutality, but also violence. So it is a very, very, very dangerous time.
Yeah. Well, Charlie Sykes, thank you so much for joining me on Mea Culpa. Truly appreciate it. You make us all smarter, my friend. Great having you also on my Substack the other day. We're going to do that again next week. Thank you so much. Truly appreciate you, brother.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you for the invitation.
You got it.